Hi, this movie will focus on what you must know about the IELTS Speaking Exam. We will begin by noting some common mistakes that could cost you marks before looking at each part of the exam separately. Speaking exam errors. Let's begin by listening to two responses to a question about restaurants in part 1 of the exam. Do you have a favourite restaurant or cafe that you go to often?
I like to go to Indian restaurant. I don't have any particular restaurant I go to, but I mainly eat Asian food if I can. I like to try a different restaurant whenever dining out, which isn't that often.
The first response will lose you marks because it does not answer the questions that were asked. The second response is good because it addresses the question, even if the candidate does not have a favourite restaurant. You must answer the questions that were asked. If you do not hear the question the first time, ask the examiner to repeat it. Note that the speaker's voice was not too fast nor too slow, and had good intonation and stress. You will not get a high score if you are too hesitant and have too many pauses when you speak, although a few are okay. Try not to speak too quickly either. This often indicates a lack of cohesion in what you are saying and rhythm in your speech. On the other hand, some features of spoken English are acceptable in the speaking exam. The use of contractions in the speaking exam is fine. For example, I'll for I will and I'd for I would. Conversation markers such as well, let me see, or to be honest, are useful in the exam if you are trying to think of what you'll say next, and could improve your score if used well. Part 1 of the exam. Here are some examples of the sets of questions that you could be asked in Part 1 of the speaking exam. Part 1 can have up to 3 sets of questions and last for 4 to 5 minutes overall. The topics are always about something familiar to you, such as accommodation or transport. The examiner will introduce the topic before asking specific questions. Here are the types of questions you could be asked. Always try to give a full answer and don't change the topic or ask questions while responding to the examiner in Part 1, unless it's important. Part 2 of the exam. Here is part of a 2-minute talk by a candidate about an activity he does in his leisure time.
The activity I spend most of my time doing is swimming, although, to be honest, this is only for about 6 months of the year, because for the rest of the time the water is too cold. I swim from about mid-September to the middle of March, in open water about 5 kilometres from our home. The sea temperature during this period never falls below 27 degrees, but from
Before the candidate spoke, he was given notice that he was required to speak for up to 2 minutes, but not less than 1 minute. He was then told he had 1 minute to think about what he would say and make some notes, and handed the speaking task on a card. The task card can be referred to while speaking, so there is no need to write the questions in full in the writing time. Here are the notes the candidate made before speaking. Note the headings what, who, where and why. The candidate has attempted to answer all the requirements of the task. After the candidate finishes talking, the examiner may ask a rounding off question. Part 3 of the exam. Here is the candidate giving a detailed response to a question in Part 3.
To be honest, in my country most people do not make good use of their leisure time, as all they seem to do is sit around watching the television or relaxing indoors. I think this is mostly because of the weather, as most of the year it is hot and sticky. Of course, some people, a minority, play some sports. The kids play football and cricket, while some of the adults play tennis and squash, although a far greater number watch sport on television. Most just seem to relax with their families at home or visit shopping malls.
This is the question the candidate was responding to. What are the most popular leisure activities in your country? Note that the discussion questions in Part 3, which last 4 to 5 minutes, are related to the topic used in Part 2. In this case, leisure activities. Here are some more examples of general questions that might be asked in relation to leisure activities or leisure time. However, examiners might also ask questions about or comment on something you have said in a previous response, such as the candidate's observation that people watch TV a lot in his country because of the weather. For more help with your IELTS speaking exam responses, such as language use and presentation, go to our other videos. IELTS Speaking Exam Tutorials Parts 1, 2 and 3. That concludes the tutorial. If you want more help with your IELTS, go to www.myenglishexam.com.